Welcome to the Start, Build and Grow podcast brought to you by Nightingweb. I'm your host, Archie MacRae, and this is a show where we dig into how real people start, build and grow their businesses. There's one goal with the podcast, and it's to provide you with insights and actionable advice on exactly what it's like to run a business in the north of Scotland. For our first episode, I'm joined by a very special guest, Anne Miller, known to many as the Dram Queen. She spent over 30 years travelling the world as an international whisky ambassador before setting up her own premium whisky tasting and touring business right here in the heart of Moray. In this episode, you'll hear how she started, built and grew her business. Anne, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Of course. So let's get straight into it. How did you first get into the whisky industry?
Over 30 years ago, I was working in Edinburgh in tourism, and as a person who speaks a couple of extra languages, I found that almost all the overseas visitors who came to Edinburgh and Scotland were really intrigued by and wanted to know more about Scotch whisky. So I found myself taking people to distilleries, and because they needed an interpreter, I was doing the entire tourist experience for them in Spanish or French. And that led to other opportunities in the whisky industry. And when the Scotch Whisky Experience was just being set up on the Edinburgh's Royal Mile, just beneath Edinburgh Castle, I came across the people who were setting it up and felt this was going to be the perfect place to take all these guests. They were then looking for a marketing PR manager, and I was successful in being appointed. So I was there before it began and put it on the map.
Oh.
That led to meeting a lot of people in the Scotch whisky industry, and that led to being headhunted to work for a large whisky company. And the rest, as they say, is history, I suppose. It's just gone from strength to strength.
Very interesting. So you speak multiple languages?
I speak French and Spanish.
French and Spanish.
Very little of anything else.
Did you learn that in school?
French at school, Spanish at university.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Which is what brought me to Scotland, because it was possible to start Spanish from scratch at St Andrews, which I couldn't have done anywhere else.
Cool. There's something quite funny about your name, the Dram Queen. It's very close to the Drama Queen.
Yes, several people pointed out that I'd misspelt the name. I pointed out that I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I was really just trying to focus on the dram. And dram, as I think anyone who's ever tried drinking whiskey in Scotland will know, is the term that we normally use colloquially to refer to a glass of whiskey. You'll have a dram. And if it's a wee dram, it's likely to be twice the size of a dram because it's an informal measure. There's no precise quantity. So quite frequently, people who are in the industry talk about drams. And so it seemed the absolutely perfect name for somebody who, as a woman, had forged a career in the whisky industry at a time when there were very few women around.
Definitely. So would you say it's more of a male-dominant industry, or would you say times are changing now?
Times are definitely changing. There are a lot more women coming into the industry at all levels, but at the time that I began in a big whisky company over 30 years ago, there were very few, if any, women at all in any production roles. That's now changed. There were women in PR and marketing roles, but not all at very senior levels. And that has now changed as well. So getting a better gender balance, I'm sure, is only going to be beneficial to everybody.
Definitely, yeah. So obviously you've travelled all over the world for 30 years as a whisky ambassador.
Well, I've travelled to a lot of countries, but not everywhere.
Not everywhere, okay.
No, not yet.
So at which point did you decide you wanted to do it on your own business?
I think there came a point where I was discovering that my life, it was quite difficult to have much control over my own life. My private time, my work-life balance was a little bit perhaps out of kilter, that so much of my time was spoken for by the company. Weekday evenings, for example, quite frequently I was travelling or committed at weekends. So it was difficult to plan ahead. So I began to think that it would be quite nice to have a little bit more control over my own time. And also, although I had represented a very wide range of different whiskies in my role, which was one of the big advantages of working for those particular companies, it was a versatile role. I wasn't just representing one brand. It would be nice to be able to have a certain independence about being able to talk about any whiskey, because there are so many fascinating things going on in the whiskey industry at the moment. It would be good to explore a lot of other things too.
Yeah. So would you class yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yes, I think so. I'm
Yeah.
probably still a fledgling entrepreneur. I don't count myself as a particularly successful entrepreneur. I'm operating on a very tiny scale compared to even some other one-man bands or one-person businesses. But yes, I hope to develop what I'm doing and to build it to something a little bit bigger.
Cool. So you got into business mainly for the freedom that it gave you, would you say?
Yeah, the freedom, the flexibility, the opportunity to could choose what I wanted to do and to be selective about the projects I wanted to support.
So when you first got into the industry and starting your own business, what would you say were the biggest challenges in the sort of early days of starting?
In the early days of starting this business, the biggest challenge to be with something which was posited on being a people-facing business where I would have direct communication with my clients and guests was lockdown, because I did this just as lockdown was really getting going. But nobody, I think, in the very early days of COVID imagined that it was going to go on for such a long time and be so limit our lives to such an extent for 2 or 3 years. So I think that really made it very difficult and very challenging. So at that stage, I explored a whole lot of possibilities of promoting a business online and running online educational projects. And at that point, I discovered that the biggest challenge I had was technical. Living in the middle of the countryside, our internet is at the far end of a very long copper wire. And that really restricts what you can upload and how you can communicate with the outside world. So I found that was a big practical disadvantage. So I was very relieved when the restrictions were lifted and it became a bit easier to communicate directly with people and to set up my own dram room on our farm in the heart of Speyside, surrounded as we are by distilleries, and invite people to come to me and enjoy a tasting, in addition to activities where I take my glasses, my bottles and my know-how and share the experience with them at another location, wherever it's convenient.
It's definitely a great part of the world for what it is you do. I think lockdown affected a lot of businesses.
Oh, it was very restrictive, and people were very creative about finding ways around the restrictions, but there were some technical disadvantages which were beyond my powers to transform, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think lockdowns, what would be the word, what caused the rise of these like Zoom meetings and online meetings. What do you think of those?
Oh, I think it was a godsend that people were able to embrace this technology, which hardly anyone was using until then, and at least keep in touch and to speak face-to-face with an image of the person one was speaking. So it was a transformation from just speaking over the telephone. But it's, I think, something which most of us are glad to leave behind as the only way in which we communicate.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm alone in embracing the opportunity to actually speak face-to-face to people now, just as we are today.
Just as we are today. And that brings me on to my next question, which would be, how have you built awareness for your business in Moray and, well, beyond? Do you work beyond Moray?
Oh, yes, yes. Incrementally, I think, is probably the most positive way of putting it. Okay. Fairly slowly. I began with a rather basic website, which has since improved, thanks to you, amongst other people. I made some fairly fledgling attempts at using social media to promote my business, found it less effective than I had imagined it would be. Perhaps because the website was absolutely inundated with people promoting their wares during COVID. I produced printed materials and flyers, which I've distributed locally. But I've also used a whole series of different networking platforms to try to promote my business a bit further afield, focusing on quality tourism activities and things of this sort, and also whisky networking activities. So you're focusing on the two things which I think are really going to bring business to me. Most of it has probably come through people using the email or internet or social media to contact me. I set up a direct booking project on my website so that people can be looking at it in the middle of my night in their daytime, wherever they happen to be, and they can book online directly without having to contact me and wait for me to communicate about availability and so on. But if they're looking for something bespoke, then they can just contact me, and then I can send them a tailored quotation for exactly what it is they're looking for. So lots of different methods of communicating, and they all work with different degrees of effectiveness on different days of the week, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, cool. So your online presence has clearly been quite important for attracting new business. If you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most important thing you've ever done for your business, and 1 being it's not important at all, it does nothing for me.
I think it's sort of 7 or 8 out of 10. I think having a good website as the foundation of what you're doing is really effective. Then you can hope to attract people's attention by posting effective messages at regular intervals, which will direct them towards your website and direct them to either make a booking or to make an inquiry. So having a website that does justice to what you're offering and explains it, I think, clearly and visually in an effective way, and is easy to navigate. I think all of these things are things that one appreciates as a consumer and needs as a business owner.
Definitely, yeah. I think one thing I'll often see from, clients or even prospects of mine, we'll make the website for them and then they'll expect that to just generate them business, whereas they need to also bring traffic to the website, through the likes of Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, which we spoke about before. Yeah.
Yes, and that is the bit where I need to be more rigorous about promoting I'm aware that I need to do more to promote it. But yes, if you can attract the business through social media, but if you've not got anything to back it up, then I suspect that probably falls. You probably don't get as far as you would like. So I think the two things need to work hand in hand, and the social media projects have to reinforce what's on the website, and the website's there to back up the information you're sharing on your social media.
Got you. Yeah,
So they work together.
Cool. So I've just got one more question on this topic, and I wonder if there's been a time where your website or even your social media presence has directly led to a big opportunity for you or your business.
Yes, I think there was one earlier this year when, just before Christmas, actually, I got a message out of the blue from somebody in Puerto Rico, which is an island off the coast of the United States and the Caribbean. It's a US protectorate, I think. It's not a fully fledged state. It has a rather strange status. I actually thought this was just a spam email to start with, I think that's just where lots of good stories begin. And it was inviting me to speak at a conference. So anyway, I got in touch. I found out a bit about the organisers. I discovered their credentials were perfectly good. And as a result, I got an expensive paid trip to Puerto Rico for about a week. Wow. A friend of mine who is from Puerto Rico said it would be a privilege to act as your guide while you're here, which was brilliant because he took me off to all sorts of different parts of the island to see a lot about it. And took me around the historic city, the capital, San Juan. And towards the end of the week, I spoke at a conference about whisky during a whisky exhibition, so a whisky event. So it was a great week altogether. And one of the other highlights was going to see around the Bacardi distillery where they make rum. So there are a lot of similarities between rum and whisky, as you're probably aware. Mm-hmm. So that was really interesting as well. So I found it a fascinating experience and a very interesting week, and prepared. It was just altogether a good result from a random email at the time, what appeared to be a random email at the time. Yeah.
It's things like those that, without having this digital world of social media, of websites, it's just things like those wouldn't be possible without the internet. Like a lot of people, they're against having websites, they're against being on social media. They just want to go back to, the olden days where we just used paper and the occasional email. But without social media and websites, what you've just said about this and Puerto Rico wouldn't have been possible.
I doubt if it would, no. And I think it's important to be able to have a presence in all of these spheres and to remain active in all of them from time to time, sufficiently frequently to make a note, to be noticed.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So do you think all businesses benefit from being online? I mean, some people are still quite hesitant to it, of course.
I think even a very basic awareness is now expected. I know that if I'm looking for a contractor or a supplier for any reason, I will resort to looking them up on the internet, searching for them, or if I come across somebody who's recommended, I will check them out online before I inquire about getting a quotation for whatever it might be. So yes, I think it has become a default mechanism that everyone uses, and therefore it's not to be online can be a disadvantage in most fields.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, if I'm looking for a restaurant or, as you say, a joiner, a plumber, those sorts of things, the first thing you resort to is Google. You know, you look them up, and normally whoever comes up first, you give them a call or have a look at their website.
Yeah, so it helps to have a good ranking, but yeah, you have to be quite selective about what if you're fairly selective about your search criteria, it helps you to not to waste time. But yes, I do tend, if I'm looking for a hotel or a place to stay, I will look at the hotel's own website, and if I'm looking at a restaurant, I will look at their menu to see what they're actually offering, as well as some of the more superficial stuff they might say about themselves. So I think we do that, yes, all the time now. It's become the way we do business and the way we conduct our day-to-day life, whether we're in business or not.
So everyone should be online, pretty much.
I don't think I could have built my own business without being online. So I'm sure that if that's any help, it's a recommendation.
So, as you know, I'm obviously quite young myself. I'm 18 and just recently bought over Nightingweb. And I wonder, what advice would you give someone of my age for starting in business?
Well, that's a very different for somebody who had to learn to type later on in her career and who's completely naive at social media. I'm sure you've mastered all of the skills that I'm still struggling with. But I think that probably the most interesting thing is to remember that there is a world, a real world as well as a virtual world. So it is really important to connect with people in real life and to make connections and to discover that people's networks can often lead to further connections. But a lot of the really effective ones are based on the fact that there is a rapport between the people, there is a genuine sense of friendship, and then people begin to help one another just because they want to do a favour for a friend. So all of these things I think help. But getting to know the people who might be potential customers in a social setting is often very useful. Yeah,
definitely. I agree. I think one of my favourite quotes, it's very short, it's very simple, is your net worth is your network.
Yes, I think that's a very good way of putting it's a very good way, a very effective way of saying, yes, make friends with people. And the rest sort of tends to fall into place. I have to say that my experience of travelling the world is that building a rapport with people was something that I had to do almost immediately I walked into a room. And then they would then believe what I was telling them and trust what I said to them about the product that I was there to support. But until I could actually establish that there was a sort of rapport there to begin with, none of that was going to work.
Got you. I think in-person networking is very important. I've only learnt that recently because myself, being from the younger generation, I was always online. I thought a whole business could be built off of social media and just having a website. I mean, it can to a certain degree, but I think having almost like a hybrid mix, 50-50 in person, 50-50 on social media. I think it works really well.
I think that's probably a good balance. I think that there is a tendency for younger people, dare I say it, to perhaps not want to engage directly, not wanting to speak on the telephone, to want to do everything by text message, is possibly depriving themselves of a few opportunities that they could find beneficial.
Yeah, completely agree with
So
that.
there's space for a bit of everything. For my generation, it's probably about learning to be comfortable with using social media and online communication. For the younger generation, perhaps it's a question of being more confident with actually talking face-to-face to people. But given that so many of your formative years have been spent under lockdown, it's not surprising that it's a challenge.
Yeah, this is very true. So do you think lockdown has had quite an impact on people like myself from that generation growing up through lockdown?
I hope that if it was having a problem, it is think people are managing to get through it and get beyond it. But there's plenty of anecdotal evidence of children who's struggled to communicate, partly because they had not had the opportunity to get out and about and to meet people outside their own family network,
Yeah.
their own immediate families, just because of the limitations imposed. So I think it can be more difficult for some people than others.
Yeah, I think it was a very hard time, especially for a lot of people, to be living, I guess.
There were so many uncertainties, but I think it was very difficult for children to progress with schoolwork when they had parents who couldn't support them because they didn't have the knowledge and background to do so, or because they themselves were compelled to keep working. And there was perhaps not as much flexibility and adaptation made as might have helped.
Yeah.
But I'm sure people will overcome that as they've overcome lots of challenges over the years.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We all have moments in business where there's just like this moment when something just clicks. And it's that moment of realization and you think, I wish I did that sooner. What would you say your just clicked moment was for you? If you had to name one.
I think realising that I needed to upgrade my website to do a better job at promoting precisely what it was I was offering, so it was less confusing and there was more clarity about the different activities I offer. So, for example, I now have a dedicated section which is about the person-to-person web experience I can offer in my own dram room on our farm. So people come to me. I can offer a whole series of experiences. But then secondly, there are experiences which I offer where I can take the kit and caboodle to them and provide a whisky experience for a large group of people, perhaps an anniversary, a party, a reunion, a conference, whatever it might be, in a large building, in a castle, in one of the stately homes that surrounds us, a big hotel, these sort of things. So I do quite a lot of these regularly. And then defining that I run whisky courses, so I can deliver lots of very in-depth training courses as well. So that's another strand. And the sort of whisky tourism side of it is that I can help people to create really interesting itineraries with a focus on Scotch whisky, but which take them to places which are perhaps not quite so accessible to every tourist. So, and then anything else they want to ask me, because I'm a fountain of knowledge about whisky.
Yeah, definitely. What is one investment, whether it's time, money, or tools, that that's paid off the most and given you the biggest return on your business, would you say? Was it a property development? Was it website? Was it social media? And don't feel you have to say your website because I'm here.
No, but I think it is the online presence, which was an area which I had been quite a regular consumer of online businesses and different capacities. For many years, I checked out businesses online before approaching them. I'd used websites, but I had no clue about how they worked. So putting in the time to learn how to be able to manage my own website has been quite a big commitment for me. And as I have become more familiar with what I need to do, I hope become a little more adept at doing it. And becoming more confident about using social media in a way which is effective communication rather than just simply drowning the internet in all the online platforms with a load of really irrelevant information that nobody really wants to know about. I don't think I do that, but I do think there's an awful lot of stuff on the web, on the different platforms, which is not particularly relevant.
No, a lot of it is
not particularly
nonsense.
interesting. So it needs to. I've learned that I need to make relevant but interesting communication that people actually want to read, and to tell them something which is intriguing, and hopefully will then lead them to my website or to find out more about me. So that's where I feel I have needed to invest, and probably still do.
Well, that has been a pretty good conversation so far. Now, something I'd like to do in the show and the podcast is just have a little bit of fun and give my guests some quickfire questions. So let's start with your favourite local spot for coffee or lunch.
Well, if I'm in Elgin, I think probably the Elgin Youth Cafe is somewhere I'd like to support. It's they serve good coffee, they serve great sort of light lunches, but also it's nice to be able to support young people who are getting opportunities to work in hospitality and to get some work experience, and to get a taste of what that might be like. So that's one place I like, possibly in the Aberlour area, which is closer to where I live. A place which I know I can go for a real treat is the Downs Hotel, where they can do good coffee, but also great meals as well.
Yeah.
So different ends of the same spectrum, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. The Elgin Youth Cafe, I've never actually been until recently. And yeah, it's a really good place. Good coffee, really good vibe and atmosphere around it. And I love that it's obviously supporting young people and giving them that opportunity.
And it's also quite a nice place to have informal meetings that I've done on many occasions.
Definitely.
Yes. I'm glad I found it.
Likewise. What's one whiskey that everyone should try at least once?
Oh, there are so many. I don't think I can answer that question.
Jack Daniels?
Well, I think we'll stick to Scotch, shall we? I think try to get out of your comfort zone. So if you generally drink blended whiskey, try a single malt. If you generally drink Speyside whiskies, then see whether there is anything to be said for peated whiskies if you've never tried them. But try a high-strength whiskey like Aberlour Abuna, for example, or Tamdhu. I think it's good to explore. There are so many different flavours in Scotch whisky that it's incredibly difficult to say there's only one without knowing what you normally drink, what does people normally drink. But when I'm doing whisky tastings, I like to sort of open people's eyes, broaden their horizons, reveal to them some of the different flavours there are in the wide range of whiskies that are available today, and to explain why and how they differ from one another.
Oh, yeah.
So, whiskey isn't just one taste.
No, definitely not. So over your, obviously you've probably been drinking whiskey more than 30 years, but over, say, your 30-year career, how many different whiskies do you think you'd have tried?
I don't think I could answer that. Plenty. I've had
more than 50?
I've had the privilege of when I was working with around 50 different. If every brand has a number of different expressions, I would have had a range of whiskies that I would have been regularly communicating about, which would have been probably at least 50 different whiskies. But no, I've had the opportunity to go and launch really old whiskies, like 38-year-old Royal Salute, which is a blend of whiskies which only starts at 21 years old. In Buenos Aires, for example, to promote different whiskies in Russia and France, all over. So I can draw on a very, very wide range of different whiskies in my sort of mental map of whiskey, which is a great privilege. Not many people perhaps have had that opportunity, and also been paid to enjoy it.
This is it, being paid to enjoy whiskey. What more can you ask for in life?
Well, it was a pretty good job when I lasted, and I'm still managing to keep it going, because what I want to do now is to share my enthusiasm and my knowledge and my expertise with consumers and with other people coming into the industry, and help them to find their way.
Cool. So is that sort of your why behind the
Yes,
business?
it's part of my purpose, and that is one of the reasons why, as a volunteer, I chair the committee that runs the Spirit of Speyside Whisky School, I was one of the founders of the Whisky Festival in the late 90s and served as a volunteer director for 2 terms before stepping back. So now I contribute in my own small way by helping to run this whisky school, which brings together a lot of experts in their own fields who deliver lectures, and people who sign up for the school, which happens just at the very end of April, just before the Whisky Festival. It still starts at the beginning of May. Go away at the end of 3.5 days with an enormous wealth of knowledge. So it's a good thing to be involved with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. What would you say is the most memorable moment from your entire career in the whisky industry?
In the industry, I think the thing that really touched me most was when I heard the news that I was to be elevated from the status of keeper of the quaich to master of the quaich. And that was absolutely extraordinary, because this is something which is voted on by the great and the good of the industry. And to realise that I had made a mark, not only working as an international brand ambassador for a very large whisky company, but since then I had continued to my contribution had been appreciated and noticed, was a real mark of achievement, and a sense of appreciation by my peers in the industry was really an emotional moment for me.
Yeah.
So that was great. Yeah.
That's huge. So for the people listening to the podcast that might not know what keeper or master of the quaich is. Yeah.
Well, the Keepers of the Quaich is an organisation whose members are the major whisky companies, Scotch whisky companies. And twice a year they have a banquet at Blair Castle in Perthshire, which is a beautiful historic building. And people who have served in the industry for at least 7 years, but have excelled themselves in that time and distinguished themselves on behalf of the industry, not just on behalf of a particular company or brand. So this is a sort of industry-wide network supporting what is excellence in the industry.
Okay, yeah.
So they have to have been distinguished in order to achieve what they do. So their companies might nominate them, but those nominations are scrutinised, and about 40 or so people will now be made a keeper at each banquet. And now, these days, 5 people will become masters at each of these banquets. So these people who are nominated as masters have to have served a further 10 years with distinction. And there is only ever one woman in this group of 5, because there just simply aren't enough women at that level of seniority in the industry for there to be more, as far as I can tell. So I count myself as very fortunate to have achieved this dizzy height.
Definitely. It's a huge achievement.
Yeah.
Huge
I mean,
achievement.
apparently more people have climbed Everest than have become keepers of the quaich. So,
and that's not masters, that's just keepers.
And masters are a very small percentage of those. So yes.
Wow.
So this is the dizzy heights of the whisky industry, and I'm still reeling with a sense of achievement and pride from having been awarded it.
You sound like quite an inspiring person for other women or even men in the whisky industry to look up to. What would you say is maybe a book, a podcast, or even a person that's inspired you in your journey in the industry?
In my journey in the industry, there are people within the industry who possibly aren't household names, who've been amazingly generous with their time and their information. They're sharing their knowledge with me. One in particular I could name would be Alan Winchester, who was the master distiller of the Glenlivet and was also involved in the whisky school for quite a lengthy period and really made his mark on bringing it back after COVID. So he is somebody who has shared with me a great deal of knowledge over many years. Outside or directly employed in the industry, I think one writer whom I've always found a couple of writers I've always found very interesting. And one is Dave Broom, who writes in a very knowledgeable way, and he also does some podcasts and speaking engagements. And the other is someone of a similar vintage to me, Charlie MacLean, who's another writer. But people may have heard of him more recently because his 3 sons have just rowed across the Pacific Ocean to raise funds for clean water in Africa. So another water connected. After all, whiskey is the water of life. Ushkava is the anglicised to whiskey, and effectively it means water of life. So water and whiskey go together.
Water and whiskey go together.
Yeah. Never have water without whiskey. Never have whiskey without water.
Wouldn't that be the same thing?
No.
No?
No, pour some water have some water with your whiskey.
Mm.
But don't just drink water by itself. Have some whiskey with it.
Okay. So
and this is what his sons have done by rowing across from Peru to Cairns in Australia. Just 3 boys in a rowing boat. So a worthy achievement.
Definitely.
A remarkable achievement. Yeah.
Would you say there's any book, podcast, or again, person that's inspired you just in terms of business? Like they don't have to be related to whiskey at all. Is there anything that's inspired you? Or even a book you found useful maybe in business?
I'm not really one for reading business books. Just because I find them rather dry. I'm possibly looking for sort of more recreational reading, but I think more it's been people who've provided me with some support. So I found the Business Gateway system of business support, and their many seminars and webinars have been really fascinating. Individually, when I've come across the people who deliver these seminars or training programs, I've found most of them to be useful. So locally, I think probably one who stood out was René Luper of Two Minds, who I've been to him for some help with my website at one point, or his business. Another one is Ailsa Stinson of B is for Brand, who's also helped me to sort of focus more clearly on what I'm trying to do and how I'm trying to communicate it. So another useful local resource. But there are plenty of others who've done some great jobs as well. So getting all of these little bits of the jigsaw in place is really significant and important.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you've, chosen out people within the local area in Murray that have inspired you, supported you, and helped you in your business journey. I think a lot of the time we might jump to, famous authors who have written a book maybe in the likes of America, or someone hosting a podcast down in London, for example, but you've picked local people. And I think up here in the north of Scotland, there's ample opportunity for business owners to start, build and grow, really.
Oh, absolutely. I think that when your business is Scotch, when your business is focused on Scotch whisky, which has to be created in Scotland, and it's very definitely a Speyside-based business. And after all, Speyside is the area of Scotland with the highest density of distilleries. In fact, I think it must be the highest density of malt whisky distilleries anywhere in the world. It just makes sense to root everything I do as much as possible in this area to find local printers, local suppliers of all the different services I'm looking for. So Elsa Stinson of B is for Brand, or René Luper at Two Minds in just along in Inverness, or someone else in and around this area is going to be my first choice, as long as they're offering us quality service.
Yeah, definitely. I think
which so far has not been disappointing, so it's been great.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to be offered here in Moray, a lot to be offered in the Highlands and Aberdeen. While we're still on the topic of whiskey and Speyside, what would you say is the biggest misconception that people might have about your industry?
I think perhaps some people come from outside Scotland. They don't know very much about Scotch whisky, so they think that all Scotch whisky is smoky and peaty. So I can disabuse them of that. I can show them that there's an enormous range of whiskies that go from light and floral to fresh fruits, to dried fruits, to spices, to dark chocolate, to nuttiness, and a whole lot of other things. And that's before anyone's got a whiff of some smoke. But yes, there are some whiskies which are smoky, Most of them tend to be made on the west coast of Scotland because they had no coal, but they had plenty of peat. So there's a good historic reason why they continued to use the traditional method of drying their malted barley over peat, which tended to fall from use in this part of Scotland. But yes, that's one of the problems. I think one of the other challenges I sometimes have is that people who arrive and announce loudly, I only drink malt whiskey. I wouldn't dream of drinking a blended whiskey. And they make various comments about the fact that they think that blended whiskies are all inferior. Now, this is clearly not true. And so I have some fun in making sure that they, or generally doing my best to show them that there are some excellent blended Scotch whiskies, so that telling the difference isn't actually as easy as they might think. So I think it's good to present them with a few different analogies to illustrate the fact that you could, for example, put a bunch of daffodils or roses or lilies into vases, and you would have the equivalent of one single malt in each of them. And they'd all be quite identifiably different. But you could also take a whole lot of foliage and create the infrastructure to create a bouquet or a beautiful flower arrangement. So all this foliage would have different shapes of leaves, different textures, indented leaves, shiny leaves, matte leaves, fluffy leaves, that sort of thing. And then you could add individual flowers, and these would represent a whole range of different single malt whiskies.
Wow.
And at the end of it, you would have a composition which would be beautifully balanced. It would be harmonious. It would be a delight to see. And it would represent a great deal more work and effort than just putting a few red roses or white roses or yellow daffodils or tulips into vases. So this is just a different way of looking at what is the difference between a malt whiskey and a blended whiskey. You've got to start off with really good whiskey to start with, but you can create different things from them for different circumstances, different occasions. But the important thing, I think, at the end of the day is to drink your whiskey in good company and to enjoy it with people you like.
Very good. So we've talked about how you started your business. We talked about how you built your business. We've done some quick fire questions. Now we're going to go on to how you grew and continue to grow your business. So if we were looking ahead at how you plan to further grow the Dram Queen over the next, say, 3 to 5 years, what's your thoughts?
I think I'd like to continue to do the face-to-face tastings in my own dram room for small groups, so anywhere between 2 and 10 people at a time. But I'd like to do a little more of the activities where I can go to speak to larger groups, sort of as part of an event, and add value to other activities. So that's something I quite enjoy. So I've done some of these in different parts of Scotland, and I have some more coming up. So I do a regular series of tastings in a couple of hotels in and around the Greater Speyside area for groups who are visiting from overseas, some clan reunions, some anniversary parties, these sort of things. So they're fun to do. And again, it's about coming into a group of people, they've got an existing dynamic, and making the right impression and telling a good story about Scotch whisky, and going away with them saying, wow, you've really opened my eyes. I didn't realise I would enjoy whisky. I've never enjoyed whisky before, these sort of comments. And you've really changed my opinion of it. Or you've really revealed that there's a whisky I hadn't thought I would like, and I really love it. So all of these things, I think, are an accolade to achieving something. And if I can continue to do that, and at the same time, perhaps to encourage some of the younger people starting out in hospitality, starting out in whisky, to find their path into the industry and to make progress, which is right for them, it would be good too. So it's time to pay back and to support the next generation as they come through.
I love that. It's good. It's a big part of my mission as to why I took over Nightingweb, is to inspire young people that no matter the background they came from, that they can still achieve something.
Yeah, absolutely. There should be no reason why anyone can't make a success of things, and having formal educational qualifications isn't the be all and end all.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a single qualification, so maybe you shouldn't have said that.
Doesn't seem to be stopping you, so that's good.
Not yet. Not yet. Have you got any up and coming projects or ideas that you're excited about?
I think the project on which I'm focusing just at the moment is getting the plans for the 2026 Whisky School ready to launch in the coming days. So that's been preoccupying me in the last few weeks. So that is pretty much getting onto the launch pad now. So that would be good. And it would just be a question of fine-tuning all the practical arrangements to deliver a whisky school which goes really well and really smoothly, and which gets positive reports and reviews from everybody who comes to it. Further than that, I'm looking to just continue. I hope to do more of what I'm doing, but to do it more effectively, more proactively. So a bit more of the same, but better.
Awesome. So just trying to improve.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're already doing a great job.
Yeah. Well, I think, but it never pays to be complacent. It's always important to keep striving for the next goal.
Definitely. Progress over perfection.
Well, perhaps progress should aiming for perfection, or as close to it as one can achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is it. So as business owners, we're constantly having to learn, adapt and evolve. How do you plan to keep learning, adapting and evolving as a business owner?
I think an awful lot of what I have learned to date in whisky has all been about the things other people have generously shared with me. So I will continue to seek out people who can provide that sort of support and that sort of networking encouragement, because as a one-woman band, the times that I have found difficult have been when I have felt quite lonely and have wanted perhaps to have someone to do a brainstorm with and to run some ideas past. And that's been something I have possibly lacked or missed. So having those opportunities, I think, would be helping me to refine my ideas about where I want to go and how I want to get there. But also continuing to read about the subject, continuing to study, continuing to ask questions, to continue to visit. It's a great opportunity to say, well, I need to go to Isla or wherever it might be, because I haven't seen the latest distillery that's being built. So it's a great justification for going on a trip.
Definitely. I think as business owners, it can get really lonely, especially if you're living on your own and you're just doing business. You tend not to see a lot of people. So I think networking is definitely a very powerful way of not only overcoming that, but also creating opportunities for the future version of yourself and your business, to get clients, to make relationships, suppliers, etc.
Yes, and I think that I have found this with the networks I'm in, that people have said, oh, I came across something which I thought might interest you, or I thought you'd be perfect for this. And so I've been very grateful to them. It doesn't always work out to be exactly the opportunity that they'd imagined, but it's always worth exploring. And if someone's taken the trouble to give you a helping hand, you have to explore where it might lead.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I've saved the best question for last. If you were to look back on your whole career, what's the single piece of advice you wish every business owner in the north of Scotland understood?
Oh, I think one of the things I've learned in life is that it doesn't matter how much you're not looking forward to a particular activity, you think it might be difficult, you're putting it off because it's a challenge. Generally, most things work out better than you feared they would, and they turn out to be better. And things do have a habit of working. And when it appears that a door is closing, another one generally opens, and a better opportunity turns up. So it's better to look forward, look round, and see what else is on the horizon.
Absolutely. Love that. You should be a motivational speaker. Anne, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been great hearing how you started the Dram Queen, built it up, and are still finding ways to grow. That journey is exactly what the Start, Build and Grow podcast is all about.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've enjoyed chatting to you, and I do hope that Nightingweb will continue to thrive from here on.
Thank you. Now, real quick, if you're a business owner and you want to get more from your website, I've put together a free PDF called 5 Website Mistakes That Local Businesses Make and How to Fix Them. Grab it at nightingweb.com/podcast freebie. The link's in the show notes. Thank you.